Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is leading aircraftman James Anning. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Please sit if you can do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Francis Charles Finlayson. Francis Finlayson, known as Frank, was born in the Sydney suburb of Redfern on the 5th of November, 1888, the son of James and Anne Finlayson. Raised in Parramatta, his father, who was a warehouseman, died in April 1896, and Frank seems to have been close with his uncle, Bill Finlayson, a butcher and prominent citizen of Parramatta. Frank went on to work as a bookkeeper. In 1910, he married May Gosper, already pregnant with their first child. They would have 2 more children over the next 4 years. The First World War began in August 1914, and after the initial rush to enlist in the Australian Imperial Force, recruitment slowed. In 1915, a man from Gilgandra, Bill Hitchin, came up with the idea of an enlistment march, gathering men to the cause as the column made its way to a recruitment centre. Hitchin's Cooey March became famous as it wound its way through New South Wales from Gilgandra to Dubbo, Bathurst and Katoomba. Towards the end of the year, the Cooeys made it to Parramatta, and Frank Finlayson joined them. Whether Finlayson had been planning to enlist, or whether he simply got swept away by patriotic fervour, by the time the march made it to Sydney, it was too late to change his mind. Most of the members of the Cooey March left Australia in March 1916, after undertaking military training. However, Frank had a different experience, for reasons that remain unclear. He stayed in Australia until September 1916, when he left Sydney Harbour on board the troop ship Euripides, bound for England. Private Frank Finlayson arrived in England late October 1916. He continued training on Salisbury Plain for nearly 3 months before crossing the English Channel to join the 13th Battalion on the Western Front. He had arrived in France during one of the coldest winters on record, and most of the time was spent rotating in and out of the front line, holding, until the weather allowed for more offensive operations. On the night of the 4th of February 1917, the 13th Battalion undertook a raid on a German trench near the French village of Gerdecourt. The battalion captured all of its objectives, but suffered under an extremely heavy German artillery bombardment and repeated counterattacks until it could be relieved. Another member of the 13th Battalion, Corporal Charlie Carr, was near Frank Finlayson during the operation. He recalled how Frank was in the same platoon and had only just joined us up. It was his first time in the trenches. He had great nerve and proved himself a splendid fighter. We had just attacked and taken the German position when they opened up terribly heavy artillery fire. Frank bravely went out and carried in a wounded German and got in quite safely. It would be one of his last acts. Just a few minutes later, he was killed by a German high-explosive shell. Frank Finlayson's body was lost in later fighting, and today he is commemorated on the Australian Memorial at Villa Brentno. He was 29 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his name, listed on the Australian Memorial at Villa Brentno, is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Francis Charles Finlayson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.